Welcome to Thank God It's Story Saturday, a weekly video series where I share stories with you that you can use to make your messages connect. Today's story is from this book called The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. And the story goes back to March 11, 2011, when a 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Tohoku, Japan, and resulted in catastrophic tsunami. Waves as high as 45 feet were created, and they struck off the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The waves were so high that they could easily leap over the underside sea walls of the nuclear power plant and destroying emergency generators, the seawater cooling pumps, and the electric wiring system. Without any power, the nuclear reactor got heated up because there was no power to cool them down, and that resulted in explosion, injuring a few people at the power plant. But the worst thing that happened was that there was radionuclides that were released into the atmosphere, which then meant that a lot of the Japanese people who lived in that area had to leave their homes and leave that area so that they don't get any radiation exposure. And you know what? They wouldn't know when they can come back because it would take 30 to 40 years to clean up the atmosphere. Now, although this earthquake, which is labeled as the Great East Japanese earthquake, was unpreventable, something out of people's control, what happened at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant was totally man-made. It could have been prevented. This was revealed in a report that was generated out of an independent investigation that was done in 2012. This was a credible report, result of 900 hours of interview, 19 committee members, 9 plant tours, and conversations from 3 town halls. Many people, through the lead up of this particular catastrophe, had warned that we are just waiting for a disaster to happen and something should be done. In fact, in the year 2006, Katsuhiko Ishibashi, a professor at the Research Center for Urban Safety and Security at Kobe University, was appointed as a subcommittee member to revise the national guidelines on the earthquake resistance of countries' nuclear power plants. Ishibashi criticized government's record for allowing these power plants to be built in area where there is high seismic activity, where the vulnerability of the power plants is high and likelihood for earthquakes to happen was really high. But rest of the members of the committee completely ignored what Ishibashi had to say, and they all had ties to these power companies. They completely downplayed what he had to say. But Ishibashi spoke up again. He wrote an article, "Why worry? Japan's nuclear plants at grave risk from quake damage." And he said that, because of high seismic activity and plate tectonics in and around this area where this nuclear power plant is, we're just waiting for an earthquake because these things happen in a pattern, and an earthquake is long overdue. He clearly said, unless radical steps are taken now to reduce the vulnerability of nuclear power plants to earthquakes, Japan could experience a true nuclear catastrophe in the near future. Unfortunately, nobody listened. In fact, Haruki Madarame, a nuclear regulator and chairman of Japan's National Safety Commission during Fukushima disaster, told the Japanese legislature not to worry about Ishibashi. He's the nobody. What he meant by that was that neither was he from the industry nor was he from the government. He came from an academic background, so what does he know? At that time, Japan was in this real need to not be dependent on anybody else for their energy needs. Therefore, the push and the rush to build these nuclear power plants and have them functioning was really, really high. But you know what? Despite Ishibashi's so many times giving warnings, nobody heard. Why was that the case? And what can we learn from that? Today, I'm going to get Janet Oshiro, Google's Environment, Health and Safety Manager, to tell us what's the point of that story.
This is a great story. Being in the safety industry for so many years, I can understand why Ishibashi-san wasn't listening. Safety initiatives often interfere with our larger goals. Safety is a long-term investment, and it requires a great amount of time, money, and effort before implementing the necessary controls. Usually, we think it will not happen to us. So why make such a large investment until it happens? We usually say safety first, but putting safety in the first place, we run the risk of placing other needs first along the way. We should change it to safety always. In that way, whether we encounter quality needs, production needs, speed needs, safety never leaves the conversation. As a lesson learned, my suggestion would be to think once more at the time of making decisions, to recheck ourselves whether we are making a subjective decision that will affect us directly, creating more effort, or an objective decision, thinking of the outcome as the best result.
Thank you, Janet. What struck for me was that it's not safety first, it's safety always, and listen to people from different perspectives. So what if he came from an academic background? He had something really relevant to say. Stay storied. I'll see you here next Saturday with another story.